Welcome to By His Grace Outdoors, where we talk the truth about our hunting, our health, and our heart. Here is your host, Kerry Nelson, and co-host Cody Cayson and Eli Nelson.
Well, I'd like to welcome you to the By His Grace Outdoor Podcast. This is Kerry Nelson along with Cody Cayson. We're coming live once again from the By His Grace Outdoor Man Cave, one of our favorite places to be, mainly because it's next to the outdoor kitchen where we do a lot of eating. Cody, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Brother Kerry. We just had us a good old ribeye and a baked potato, and I couldn't be happier right now.
Well, listen, you brought up the ribeye. Shout out to the Mississippi Beef Brothers right here in Pontotoc, Mississippi. I mean, some great guys, Rock and Rhett, and of course, their parents are dear friends of ours, and their family has been dear friends of ours for years, and they've got this beef company, and they provided the meat for tonight, and we appreciate that. And listen, we, By His Grace Outdoors podcast, we're going to eat every Thursday night. We're going to have something. So I'll tell you what, if you want a shout out on the podcast and you send some food our way, we'll eat it. And then we'll give you a shout out.
That's right. We'd be glad to test it out.
Well, we had baked potato with the ribeye and was going to have salad, but the lettuce was forgot in the refrigerator. But it didn't slow nobody down.
It did not slow me down one bit.
Not at all.
Not a bit.
And the rest of the crew that was around here eating, folks working on stuff, trying to get us ready to leave on our mission trip. And so we just had a great meal. And so, again, shout out to Mississippi Beef Brothers. They are always helpful, and you're just not going to get a bad piece of meat from them.
Well, it was my first experience with them, but I can promise you it will not be my last.
There you go.
It was fine. So.
Well, it is the first week of Mississippi bow season. A lot of people's been out hunting. I know that it kind of didn't come in on the weekend, came in the week. So I guarantee you this weekend it's going to be packed.
Oh, it'll be wide open. I was able to get down to the woods, and even on a Tuesday I went down to some public land, and it's a big piece of property that I was on, but I still passed 5 trucks on a random Tuesday getting down to my spot. So it's here, it's open. So Mississippi's, we're in full swing.
Tell us about. I know that you were after, had some deer that you were after, and I know that there were several bucks that you wanted to see. But tell us about your first experience in the 2024 deer season.
Yeah, sure. Well, I started out, like I say, that morning. We bike in. I made some short videos I will put up at some point, but I hopped on my bike, and I biked in about 1.25 miles. Dropped down in a big bottom. I had some cameras out all summer down in there, and I had some pretty good bucks. Got down in there and set up, hoping they would come through. I sat till 11:30 that morning. I didn't even see a squirrel. I did not see hide nor hair of anything. The trees that I was banking on, they just weren't dropping yet. It's still a little bit early, and I had some white oaks, so I packed up my gear. And I moved locations for that afternoon. I walked up the bottom 300 or 400 yards, and I found a red oak that was dropping a little bit, and I found some feed sign under there. So I set up, and I was really after one buck in particular, but with the sign I was picking up and the way things looked, I decided that I had been there all day, and if a doe come by, she was going to be in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And so about 6 o'clock, I heard one coming down the hill and come in directly behind me. I'm hunting out of a saddle setup, so that's always fun. So I had to spin around completely on the tree, and I got ready to shoot her coming behind me. I was going to take about a 35-yard shot of the trail she was on, and she just kept feeding through, just in no hurry at all, unbothered. And then she just turned directly and started walking just dead south right at me. Well, I'm up in this tree, and I've got all my camera equipment and everything just behind me shot like they do. So I can tell where she's working. She got behind some thick trees. So I spun back around the tree, moved my camera. I got it right where I thought she was going to jump the ditch. And I've seen deer do a lot of things, and I know they're incredible animals, but I have never seen a deer jump as far as this one did. I've got it on
Wow.
video to back up the story. But this doe, I'm hunting right on the edge of a ditch, and this doe just stopped at the ditch. I thought she was going to just slide down the bank and climb right up the other side. Without being in a run, without being in a trot, she just dropped her head, dropped her shoulders, and jumped about an 11-foot ditch, just like
Wow.
it was nothing. And she landed, and when she landed on the other side, she was within range. I let her get clear of some brush, and she was about 22 yards broadside, and the rest is history. So they say I pulled back and let her fly, and she didn't make it about 100 yards.
Well,
She
hey,
piled up, so.
bow season is meat season.
That's right.
And I've heard that from many bow hunters. They'll go ahead, especially a cull buck that's, they know that he's not going to
absolutely.
be, and then doe. A lot of guys will only kill a doe early bow season, and then they're not going to kill a doe, and mainly to go ahead and get them some meat. I think what people need to realize is we all hunters do hunt for horns, and I don't care what a person says. He would love to have that big stud on the wall, no
absolutely.
doubt, and we'd love to be able to see big deer when we're hunting. Just watching does and little bucks. We would love to be able to have a property to where you could see big shooter deer all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But don't ever let it fool you that our main goal of going hunting is because we love to eat them.
Oh, we love to eat them, and I know a lot of folks have the train of thought that, well, that's my buck spot. I'm not going to shoot a doe in my buck spot. But I'm here to tell you, I've shot a lot of does from my buck spots because when they get close with that bow in my hand, it's hard to turn them down.
And that's another thing, because in bow hunting, of course, I know the new bows shoot further and faster, and I understand that. But back when I was in the 5th grade, I got my first bow when I was in the 5th grade. And, of course, it was standard bow, no compound, no nothing, just a regular bow that you would see in a Wild West movie.
Right.
And so I used that bow and would try to shoot things. Now, we didn't have deer back then, but that was the first bow. My daddy bought it for me, and I remember shooting, and 20 yards to be accurate was amazing. That thing get way off track after that. And then, of course, as you get older, you get the compound bows, you get different things, and I know that you can shoot a deer further now than you ever could, but it's still very close. So that type of hunting, when you got a rifle and you're shooting 250 yards versus one walking right under your tree, and sometimes, like you said, sometimes the adrenaline will get the best of you, and you're taking meat home.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like I heard a guy say, Mr. Gene Wenzel, I love them old school hunting videos, and he made a quote, and he said, bow hunting ain't about how far, it's about how close.
Yeah.
And that's exactly true.
That's true.
I don't care if it's a little doe or a big 10-point buck. You got a live critter 15, 18, 20 yards from you. It's adrenaline rush like
Sure.
you've never experienced when you've got a bow in your hand,
Well, and we've already heard of several killing and some deer and some good deer, and a lot of them's been hunting already. They take this first week of bow season, however it falls. That's a part of their vacation, but I'll tell you, this weekend it'll be wide open, and there's going to be a lot of pictures on Facebook, and probably be some really good deer killed and a lot of pretty deer, because there'll probably still be some in our area that'll still have some velvet on them.
I've got some on my personal property there in Itawamba County, and they're about half and half as of this morning when my download came through. The bigger bucks are still in velvet. The smaller, younger class deer, for whatever reason, they've all shed. But I got about 3 really good ones that we got our eyes on, and they're all still holding velvet. So.
Well, Cody, we start this podcast off with a introduction, and in that introduction it says join Kerry Nelson and co-host Cody, Cayson, and Eli Nelson. And so we haven't had Eli Nelson. He hasn't been here during our first podcast. But ladies and gentlemen, in the By His Grace Outdoor Studio is the one and only Eli Nelson. Welcome.
Hello.
All right.
How are y'all?
Good to see you, sir.
I just want to ask you, Eli is not a talker, and he don't like to talk. And if you've ever heard him sing in church, he's gonna sing. And if you try to make him introduce people, he's gonna say, "Well, that's Matt, that's Ben, I'm Eli," and then start singing. So he don't do a lot of talking. But I would like for him to announce to the hunting world about what's going to happen this next April.
Well, I'll be missing out on a lot of turkey hunting because we will be bringing in our first child, Luca James.
Luca James. All right. So Eli and Kenzie are going to have their first child, and he's it's a boy, and his name is Luca James. And so Eli is going to be he's going to be celebrating the birth of this child during turkey season. But I got a feeling the kids' birthday parties from here on out is going to be somewhere in the woods.
That's right.
Eli,
Okay.
when is the estimated due date? I'm just
April
curious.
11th.
April 11th. Well, see, I've got one April the 7th.
Okay.
So I'm right there with you. So let me just tell you, it won't slow you down too much.
Well, and one good thing to do, Eli, just like your parents did, you'll have multiple children, and birthday parties kind of slow down because if you got a kid every other month having a birthday, they'll slow down a little bit due to the funds. So, but anyway, Eli's home this week, and they're here, so I thought I'd bring him in. I didn't want people to think we were lying, that you were actually
I'm a real person.
yeah, you're a real person and a co-host. But Eli loves to bow hunt, and he's like a lot of people, don't get a lot of opportunity because of the ministry and his job, and so but he does like to bow hunt. And we have a lot of great bow spots that we have access to. And I tell people all the time, Cody, Cayson being one of them, sitting across this table, I've told him for years, we've got all these spots that for the ministry. And we did get a crossbow. I think I mentioned that in one of the other podcasts. And so we've got several hunts lined up towards the middle and end of October, and it's gonna have to cool off some for some of the folks that we take, but we're hoping to get a bow kill. We've only had one bow kill in 25 years. We've only had one kid on camera kill deer with a bow, and Maggie Lindley from Delta, Alabama, Brother Josh Sparks. I was in revival. Brother Josh took them and filmed it, and she got a doe. And so we just don't have a lot. It's just hard sometimes to get kids and disabled in the woods.
Right.
But we've got a lot of great spots, and so we're looking forward to this bow season. Well, we love to talk about our hunting. We also love to talk about our health. And so we've already talked about our meal tonight, in which you never go wrong eating meat, and certainly you never go wrong eating red meat. I know that's not going to get into arguments with people, but the conspiracies over red meat a key and red meat to do this, and so they tried to cut all that out years ago when I was a kid, and so we know that to be wrong. There's nothing wrong with meat, and so we love eating meat. And so tonight again, Mississippi Beef Brothers brought us our supper, but I wanted to say something about sugar. Okay. I wanted to say something tonight about sugar. I'm going to pass some health tips along, some things that I've learned. And we had a young lady that went to our church at one time, and she was in college, and she came one day. She'd heard me talking about, I always mention how pastors, and sometimes it's just a lifestyle. It's on the go. It's eating late. If you're like me and you preach a lot of revivals, then they'll feed you after church, or they'll feed you right before church, and so you're eating a lot. You're eating late, and so I know it's lifestyle, and you have to make some changes. But one thing that I find in the ministry is people's constantly trying to give you something full of sugar. It's just dish after dish after dish. And so with that being said, as we said last week, you can have some times that you can have some cheat days. Right. All right. You can have some times you can have a cheat meal. But one thing I would say to everybody listening, one thing that'll help you, you've heard people say this, and this is why they do it. You've heard people say, I gave up my sodas, or I gave up my canned drinks, or I gave up they'll say something like, I gave up my daily Coke, or I gave up my Dr. Pepper. Well, why did they do that? Well, it's not for caffeine purposes, it's for the sugar that's in it.
Sugar, right.
Okay? So if you'll be conscious about your sugar intake, you can literally lose weight and maintain where you want to be just by making a few healthy choices. And one of them is just don't eat this sugar that they're pumping out in all these products. And if you're going to eat it, eat less than you've been eating.
Right.
And so that's always a good health tip, because that helped us. I make a conscious effort. If I'm not on my cheat day, I make a conscious effort to see what is full of sugar and what's not. And so we do that. But I will tell you this. I wanted to say this in our health segment, is we're going to be smoking some baby back ribs next week for our mission trip. And so I wanted to tell everybody, people ask sometimes, Brother Kerry, what do you do to your ribs?
Yeah.
And so there's all kinds of ways, okay? If the rib comes out and it's really good, I don't care your method. But I have a method that I go by that Brad Childs, a good friend of mine I used to work hospice with, Brad taught me this lesson on smoking baby back ribs, and it's the 3-2-1.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I do.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking
So
about.
it's 3 hours open, and James Sutton in Texas, Brother James, one of the best meat smoking Texans you'll be around. He always told me, he said, Brother Kerry, you're only getting smoke in the early stages. After that, it's not penetrating the meat.
Right.
So that's the idea of that 3-2-1 too. 3 hours open, then take them off, wrap them, and put whatever you're going to put on them. All right, which I'm a honey barbecue guy. So I like to put Tennessee dipping sauce and honey in my wrap, and that's aluminum foil. I just wrap it in aluminum foil, put them back for 2 hours. After that, then I just open them. I don't take them out of the foil. I open them for another hour, and after that, if you've got time, my favorite trick to do with any meat, whether it's Boston butts, pork loins, baby back ribs, my favorite trick to do is to then take that meat off of a smoker and put it in a sealed cooler. And so the 3-2-1, the 6 hours of smoking it, you can take them off right then and eat them. I've done it.
Yeah.
But if you'll put them in a cooler another hour, maybe even longer, there's just something about that.
So
And
we talking about, because I've not done that, so we talking about ice cooler or just
ice cooler,
Yeah.
like a Coleman cooler, a
yeah,
Yeti cooler, or
just
whatever.
ice them down?
No,
That's
no,
what
no, no.
That was my
no,
question.
I'm sorry.
No ice.
Put them in
Okay.
there, and it basically it's a steaming process, and it's
Okay.
letting the meat
I
rest.
understand that.
It's letting the meat rest.
Gotcha.
And so that was a trick somebody taught me, and probably some of the best chicken breast I ever eat in my life. Brother Josh Adams put them on the grill out here one time when we were cooking for a hunt, and he cooked them about halfway, and then put them in a cooler and let them stay there, then steam out.
Wow.
And I mean, just fell apart.
Okay.
So that's kind of so I get asked that a lot about the baby back ribs. We have a rotisserie type smoker. They're like, well, how do you do it? Well, it's a 3-2-1, and you can't eat them then, but if you do have a little more time, put them in whatever cooler you use to ice your drinks or ice down whatever, or carry ice. Just put them in that empty, shut the lid, and just walk off.
Just leave it alone. Okay.
Now, that's really effective with Boston butts.
Okay. Well, I have not done that, so I will try it.
And
next
you've
time.
eaten some of our Boston
yeah,
butts.
I love
and
them,
so
yeah.
we definitely with Boston butts give them time to rest in a cooler.
Okay.
So there you go with the health.
We learning something.
Hey, we learning. So what about not only our hunting and our health, but let's end tonight and talk a little bit about our heart.
Okay.
And of course, Cody goes to our church, and he's heard me recently teaching out of the book of 1 John, chapter number 3. 1 John chapter number 3, verse 16 says, "Hereby perceive we the love of God." I mean, how do we know the love of God? because he laid down his life for us. And we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoso hath this world's goods, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? And Cody, we're going to leave a group of men from our church, and there'll be others that'll be coming in from other places. We're going to go down to a little south of Augusta, Georgia, and a dear friend of ours, Brother Josh Williams, in the Crossroads Baptist Church. They were in the middle of that storm that came through that part of Georgia, and we're going to go down after the morning services Sunday, and we're going to set up and cook. Now, let me explain this to everybody listening. Everybody goes and does different things. Our heart has been since 2016 to go in. We love to cook. We can cook. We have the cooking equipment. We have all of the things to cook. And we just pull up, because by the time we get there, they're tired of sandwiches.
Right.
They're tired of protein bars.
Well, it lifts your spirits to sit down to some smoked ribs, like
yes,
you
sir.
say. I mean,
and so we go in and cook as good a food as we can afford.
Right.
And how that happens is, and it's already happened on this trip, is people have donated. And over the years, I guess we've built enough trust that people say, you know, Brother Kerry's going, we know what he's going to do,
right,
and the men that go with him. And so they just donate. And then we have local people that give us tremendous deals on the food and the supplies. And we roll up. We're going to roll up in Georgia, and we're going to cook about 10 meals. They're all going to be hot meals. We're going to do breakfast, lunch, and supper.
Yeah.
And we're going to do anything from baby back ribs to pork loins to Boston butts to leg quarters. We'll smoke ground chuck burgers for lunch, and then we'll have sausage, egg, pancake, all of the breakfast stuff, and just try to lift the spirits and encourage them. And we all know that there are probably millions of pallets of water that'll be sent in, and that's needed, but we know that we need nourishment as well.
Exactly.
And we want to help the churches. We want to help the workers. There'll be people there that don't even attend church. They're going to get a plate.
Right.
We're not going just for church folk. We're going for anybody affected in the way of this storm. And we've been able to do that year after year, and the Lord's blessed it. But I was just thinking that if he laid down his life for us, he uses this word in 1 John 3:16. He said, we ought. We ought.
We ought.
It has the idea, it's a word that has the idea that we owe. It's a debting word. And so we ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. And he goes on to say, if you've got good, if you've got the world's goods, if you've got possessions, riches, whatever, and you see your brother have need and you don't have any compassion for him, then the question John asks is, how does the love of God dwell in you? Because his love laid down his life for
right,
you, and your love for your brethren is being shut up. So, you know, shout out to our church, Grace Memorial Baptist Church, for allowing us to have this feeding ministry. Shout out to the membership that always supports us financially, through prayer, through baking, through bringing items. And then all the churches, all the individuals, family, friends, local businesses. There's just so many people that have given to this cause. And, you know, when we get down there, we're going down there to represent the Lord.
Right.
That's what we're going for.
Absolutely.
And to show them, you know, if it wasn't for the grace of God in our life, we would never even care about our neighbor. Oh, yeah. We wouldn't care about our brother at all.
Well, it could so easily be us tomorrow. I mean, it could. And I know I've never had to deal with that type of devastation, but I can only imagine how much of a blessing that would be to roll up somewhere, like you say, just sit down to a hot meal.
Yes.
because it's just, that's things we take for granted until it's us. And so that's going to be a tremendous blessing to some folks.
And our goal is to feed about 2,500 meals. Hand out 2,500 plates, 3 meals a day. And so we're excited about it. We ask everybody listening to keep us in your prayers. If you haven't been able to help with the storm victims, whether it's Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, just Florida, wherever, if you haven't been able to help and you want to be a part of that, what we always do, if there is any money left from what was given that we do not spend, we leave it in the care of that church, because they're going to see needs that they probably don't even know exist yet, because they're still yes. And so all of the donations will go to the storm victims, whether through food or through actual money.
Right. And
we'll make sure that the money is being distributed by someone that's accountable. And so get up with us. You'll be hearing this. It's Friday, and you're listening to this. And so if you want to help, just reach out to me. Everything's run through our church. Our church is the accountability of that. And so if you want to help, we would love for you to help. And it is a great, great cause. And let me just say this, for everybody that is helping in other directions, we got people in our county sending trucks, sending crews, sending cash, they're sending PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. They're helping people all over the place. Shout out to every church and every person that has organized some type of trip to help, and prayers for all the families that are still waiting to hear from their families. They've lost their families. They have died in these recent storms. And shout out to all of the churches that'll be dealing with them, you pastors that'll be counseling with them. Right. It's just you're right. Just one change of direction, it can come right up through where we live.
Oh, yeah.
And so we just we don't want to shut up our bowels of compassion. Right. And I'm just grateful with the opportunity. So that's our heart this week. The victims of this latest hurricane, and so we just pray for all of them, and you pray for us as we go. Well, Cody, it is going to be an interesting weekend.
It will
bow
be.
hunting. I know that you'll be somewhere
We're gonna
up
try
a tree,
to be.
and I pray you have safety, and so maybe you'll get enough meat you can share with your pastor. And I'll cook it if you kill it.
Well, that sounds like a deal to me. Hey, I'm taking my dad Saturday. He ain't bow hunted in 15 years.
Get out of here.
We excited about that.
Joe Earl in the tree.
He's going to break it out. Yes, sir.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and call it. And so let's see how I can do this and keep Joe my friend. I'm going to say he's going to see a huge buck, and he's going to have a great story on how he missed it.
Well, that's why he quit years ago. So.
All right. Joe Cayson, this whole podcast is going to be dedicated to you. If you kill a deer with your bow, you're going to have to come. Hey, if he kills a deer with his bow, he will come sit down
That's
with
right.
us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we might even do it on his back porch and start a fire.
Oh, that sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do
All
it.
right. Until next time, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
By His Grace Outdoors. We are what we are by the grace of God. 1 Corinthians 15:10.